Fans.
Mike Craven, Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine, writes some great articles, and he has one on Baylor defensive coordinator Matthew Powledge. And reading the first line blew me away. I should know this. We should have known this, but we've had Matthew on most of the time, like when he was rehired by Dave Aranda. The last time first-year Baylor defensive coordinator Matt Powledge called a defense was in 2004 at Huntsville High School at a powder puff football game. Mike, I love nuggets, and that is one hell of a nugget.
Yeah, well, what's funny is it was the last question I asked him during our 30-minute sit-down. I was about to get up, and I go, hey, did you call any plays at Oregon? When's the last time you called a defense? And he goes, bro, last time I called a defense was, at Huntsville for that powder puff game. And what's funny about it was how passionate he was talking about. I mean, he remembered some plays. He remembered, people in their big plays. Like, he remembered how long it had been since the juniors beat the seniors. And so it was just a funny note to end the interview on. It ended up being the best part of it.
He is a particularly kind of intense coach. Do you think that is kind of the nice balance to Dave Aranda, who is not what you'd call an intense guy?
Yeah, I think so. And, I've known Coach Powledge for a long time. He was actually the offensive GA at Southeastern Louisiana when my little brother played offensive line there. And so, he's always been a guy that you knew was going to be, a rising star. We thought it was going to be on the offensive side of the football, which is also what, the article is kind of about, how he bounced back and forth. And, really his first love was special teams coaching. And all those guys are really, really intense, usually, those special teams coaches. And so, you'd expect nothing less from a dude who was a safety who got so big in the weight room, he ended up playing linebacker and then fullback. That's just kind of what he's about, and I do think it brings a little bit of balance to the staff. It's probably needed.
How much was the part about I guess being back in Waco a part of the conversation? Just the one brief year in Oregon. Just how did he kind of address that, if at all, and what were his thoughts on being back so quickly?
Yeah, I think he was excited to get back. He's a Texan through and through, so being able to coach Power 5 football in the state, for a coach that he really admires. Like, you can tell he really enjoys Dave Aranda and what he's about. They share a similar defensive philosophy, and I think an overall life philosophy, even though that they have different personalities. And so, but also I think that year in Oregon was nice, right? I mean, he worked under another really good defensive coach who's kind of a legend as a defensive coordinator, and so to add kind of another person to kind of mold yourself under, a role model or whatever, has got to be important. And so I think he's excited to be back. He's excited to call the defense. And I think that year abroad, so to speak, kind of helped a little bit for sure.
So Aranda is in his coaching tree, or vice versa. Willie Fritz also had a little bit to do with Matthew Powledge too, correct?
Yeah, Willie Fritz, Casey Keeler, he kind of came through that Sam Houston tree, right? He played there. And so, Fritz was kind of the first, that was his first boss, really. He was a GA, volunteer GA for there at Sam Houston before he moved to Southeastern. And so, yeah, definitely coached for a lot of really good coaches, and definitely a rising star in this industry.
Mike, what kind of a recruiter do you think he'll be as he grows? He's already kind of got a little bit of that reputation, but still a young coach. A recruiter he'll be, especially in this state where he is from.
Yeah, I think he's going to be really good on the recruiting trail. I mean, he's young, he's energetic. He's one of those guys that likes star players and putting those star players in positions to go make plays. Like, they're going to try to be more 2021 Baylor, where you just kind of let those dudes rip. And you need those guys, right? I don't know if the defense had the horses they needed to run that kind of defense last year, and we kind of saw the mishaps for that. So I think he's going to be a really good recruiter. I think he's going to, aim high, and he's a dude that, you want to go play for.
As someone who covers the state so closely and, obviously talking in depth with Powledge and others, Mike, what kind of a sense do you get for Baylor? Because we're as close as anybody, and we're a bit stumped as to what exactly expect. I mean, we expect to see an improved team, but as far as, name and numbers of wins and all that, it could vary greatly. Just what are your thoughts about what you've been able to kind of wrap your head around when it comes to Aranda and company trying to bounce back from last year?
It feels more like the team going into 2021 than the one going into 20 or the one going into 2022. It feels like in hindsight, we should have seen the dip last year you're not going to lose a Terrell Bernard and a Jalen Petrie and a JT Woods, just all the guys that they lost on both sides of the ball, and be as good. You're just not going to do it unless you're Georgia or Alabama or one of those teams that recruits top 5 nationally every single cycle. And so they were going to take a step back. And the thing I like about Aranda is he's willing to admit mistakes and look in the mirror and try to figure out a different solution. And he was pretty honest about, he didn't want to go in the portal. He thought it was, betraying the guys currently on his roster. I think he learned his lesson. He got some guys that are going to be instant starters and leaders within that locker room. So I think that they're going to be closer to 10 wins than they are to 6 wins. But, you could give me a pretty wide range of final results, and I don't know if I'd be shocked by him.
How ironic, in your opinion, is it that he was once on the defensive side of the staff at Louisiana Lafayette, and Ron Roberts was the head coach. He was the defensive coordinator there, and he's taking his spot now at Baylor.
Yeah, I mean, the ties are crazy. In college football coaching, it's always Kevin Bacon, right? Like, they're always separated by 2, 3, 4, 5 degrees of separation. And, Powledge knew all these guys. Like, he knew Jeff Grimes from those camp days, and he knew Dave Aranda from those camp days. He knew Ron Roberts from running in those circles in Louisiana. So, at the end of the day, I think guys, hire dudes that they trust, and that they hired guys that the guys that they trust. Right. And if you're going to replace Ron Roberts with somebody then that's Dave Aranda's guy, right? I mean, that's one of his mentors. To bring in somebody who's an understudy who kind of thinks the way that you do and believes in the same kind of stuff that you do is a natural transgression, I think, or a progression. I mean,
Mike, what do you think overall this year? The new Big 12 the new kind of old Big 12, the way it's going to shake out with Texas and OU leaving, Texas being picked to win the league. Do you think this is going to be one that maybe, like it has the last couple of years, someone that no one thinks can come and win this league?
I hope so. I mean, I think like a lot of just lifelong Big 12 fans, like we just hope it's not Texas versus Oklahoma. And it very well could be. I mean, Texas is as talented as they've been in a really long time. And I'm usually the guy who's like, Texas is going to win 7 games or whatever. I think they're going to be really good. They're good up front. They're good on the defense. As long as, Sark kind of grows up and Quinn can stay mature, I think they're going to be pretty good. Oklahoma has such an easy road that it feels like they may be one of those teams to make it. But, if the Big 12 taught us anything, it's that we don't know anything. And so I'm excited to kind of start seeing where it's going to shake out. And I think Baylor, Texas Tech, TCU, I think any of those teams could end up in the Big 12 championship, but I would not be surprised at all.
Ron Roberts, of course, was let go. He's now at Auburn. When he took over, Powledge told us that when Dave Aranda called him, it was just like, hey, we want you back. And he, like you said, he was only at Oregon for 1 year, and he's now a chance to be a defensive coordinator. He wanted to come back to Texas because this is where all his roots are. How do you feel like as far as the transition has been and how comfortable he might be?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all systems go. I mean, just from talking to some of the offensive staff guys, just behind the scenes stuff, like they've been challenged in a way, that they haven't before. I mean, Powledge brings the juice, man. That's an energetic, competitive guy. And sometimes you need that. I mean, we've been around sports enough that sometimes it's not the messenger. It's just how long the message has been being relayed in the same way. And, it felt like a time to make a change, I think, for Aranda, to bring in somebody young, to bring in more energy, to bring in some juice. I think Powledge brings that, and being back in his home state is going to help him recruit really well. And he knows these guys. He knows this roster. He helped bring a lot of them in. And so I think it was as smooth as a transition can be for a coaching staff.
Do you want to tease what you're writing next?
Yeah, I mean, for us next week in the state, I think the big story is going to be UTSA versus Texas State and the Jeff Traylor, G.J. Kinney reunion. Everybody knows that, G.J.'s story. His father obviously played at Baylor, Gary Joe, who was shot at Canton High School, and then, him going to Gilmer and playing for Jeff Traylor, and now, almost 20 years later, they're about to be head coaches playing against each other at rival schools. So, been working on that for a couple weeks now, leading into the season, and we'll publish that Monday. So, the season's fun, man. We get to write a bunch of really cool feature stories. It's not a bad gig.
We get to discuss games, performances, what's good or bad. Thank you for your time, Mike. As always, he does a great job. His writing is fantastic. Mike Craven, Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine. The GJ